Great. Okay, so I think we'll just kick off. Thanks everyone for attending today. This is a Reasoning Investment session with Social Investment Scotland and with Creative Scotland. And we've got a guest today, Lynzi Leroy from Scottish Design Exchange. So the format today, it's a webinar, obviously, that you've signed up to. At the bottom of the screen here, you'll see there's a question and answer function and also a chat function. They're basically the same sort of thing. So if you want to ask some questions throughout, Julie is on hand. She'll take a note of them and we will field them through. So just to kick things off, I'm going to introduce Morgan from Creative Scotland, who is going to give us a bit of an overview on Creative Scotland, what they're offering at the moment, various different grant programmes, and the relationship that we've got with Social Investment Scotland. So, hi there, Morgan.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Morgan Petrie. I'm a Creative Industries Manager at Creative Scotland. I think I'll share my screen, see how that goes. And really just flick through where we've come from, where we are, and where we're hoping to get to. Initially, obviously, we, like everybody, started working from home in March and realised that the impact was going to be quite significant, and we are realising just how dramatic the impact is on the creative industries. And I mean, many of the performing arts centres, music venues, theatres are not going to be open until next year, and we're really going to have to work our hardest to make sure that the impact is minimised as much as possible, and that organisations, individuals can bounce back as quickly as possible. One of the first things we did was we put together the bridging bursaries for individuals. So very quickly we distributed £4 million, just over 4 million across screen, creative industries and the arts to 2,300 applicants. One of the programs that we did have up and running, I thought I'd mention this because of our current partnership with Social Investment Scotland, and it also suits very much Community Shares Scotland, is Create Networks. So it's a fund to help creative businesses, creative practitioners work collaboratively in networks around Scotland. We have currently 4 running. One in Inverclyde, excuse me, I'm just looking at my screen, in Argyll and Bute, Aberdeenshire, and Dumbarton. And this is an area, because we've naturally, I'll come on to our open fund at the end, we wanted to try and adapt as much as possible to the circumstances we found ourselves in. And we've just agreed that we'll have targeted funding available. And this is a fund that I think is kind of interesting for us to work collaboratively with local authorities, with other national partners as well. So that I anticipate will be coming later in the year. We did notice, and I'm sure everybody has, and we're doing it now, is that everybody's switching to digital tools and media to try and make sure that we're communicating with members of staff, other organisations, but for arts and creative industries and screen businesses, they've been endeavouring to maintain a level of contact with their audiences and also share creative content. In some cases, some organisations, individuals were looking for more support in how they manage that and deliver that effectively. So we've currently got digital pivot support with a digital producer, Susie Glass, and my colleague, Ashley Smith-Hammond, who are supporting organisations to, it's a kind of training and support and mentoring program that will help them to customise what their work is for online or for digital media. There's another opportunity to engage with that from the 6th of July to the 20th of July. And that will run through August and September. And we're also about to launch, I was hoping that that would be live, but it's coming soon, with digital partner UK that works with the BBC, Creative Scotland and Arts Council England. It's called The Space. They have a huge amount of resources on their website. We've been working with them for years, and we are going to be doing a kind of peer support program with The Space coming up soon. So the application opportunity will be available on the website, creativescotland.com. And today, actually, just now, I think, we have a partnership with Crowdfunder. And I know that Crowdfunder keep in touch and partner with Social Investment Scotland. This is a second iteration of our, it's experimenting with crowdfunding, but I think it's an area that we will look at more. And again, this is an opportunity to go through a supported program of crowdfunding, like this program with Social Investment Scotland. There's an opportunity to release some funding from us, and that will be matched funded by crowdfunding, and Crowdfunder will run a program of support for successful applicants. For individuals, we've got an opportunity on Friday the 19th of June at 3 o'clock, and on Tuesday the 23rd of June. And the information is available on our website and on the Crowdfunder website. Now, our open fund for sustaining creative development is the key avenue for support. We've changed that a fair amount from the original fund. We felt we had to do something, obviously, as I said, to respond to the challenges we're facing. The fund maintains the core aims and emphasis of creative practice reaching audiences, but obviously we have to respond to the restrictions on movement and gatherings. So we've got a stronger commitment to equalities, diversity and inclusion, and that is something that, if you look at the application process, that becomes quite a clear criteria in terms of how your project is addressing equalities, diversity and inclusion, and also environmental aspects, not just carbon reduction, but environmental impact, waste, etc. We've also heightened the public benefit requirement, and it can be sometimes quite difficult to articulate, but I think for organisations that are very aware of social inclusion, and social investment, and what the social enterprises are, and that's where I think social enterprises could be ahead of the game, because they understand what their social responsibility is. We've also got an augmented risk assessment, which takes into consideration current restrictions, but also we ask for a RAG rating, red, amber, green, in terms of where an activity might be against the government guidance, and it looks like there will be social distancing in play for up to the end of the year even. So you can apply for up to 50,000, anything from 1,000 to 50,000. We've separated out the application process, so organisations will be assessed and approved or not, judged. Well, that's a terrible word, judged. Will be assessed with organisations and individuals with individuals, because that was something that we felt we needed to change previously, because the offers are different. We've limited activities to 12 months. You can apply for up to 15,000, and it's an 8-week turnaround. And if you're applying for anything between 15 and 50,000, we have a 12-week turnaround. All the information is available on the website. I think we are now bringing in more targeted funding for specific activity where we see a strategic need, but we are also, and I think as other partners in public sector and funding, are in constant discussion with the Scottish Government, and we have live conversation with them at the moment to see where we can bring other funding on stream where perhaps people have fallen through the cracks, because I think we've covered a lot, but there's still a definite need. And also in terms of the creative industries, there's going to need to be more support. So we'll hopefully have more news on that. I think that will cover my 10 minutes. I'll stop sharing my screen and pass back to Kieran. And obviously I'm available to take questions if there are any at any point.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Morgan. And as you said, it's been a really great kind of process to work with Creative Scotland and to think about this kind of new world that a lot of creative enterprises are going to enter, thinking about social investment, crowdfunding, community shares, and different ways that they might raise funding and sustain themselves going forward. As part of that, we had mentioned before that we're working in partnership with Creative Scotland on an assist grant programme. So this is a small grant pot which is made available to anyone who's joined the workshops yesterday, today or tomorrow, where we can support you to do some feasibility work to help you get closer to become investment ready or to take on investment. And from some of the workshops that we've run before, we're seeing that there's a lot of the social enterprises that we work with that maybe have had a lot of grant funding, and maybe that will change over the next couple of years because they have maybe local authority money or a mixture of funding pots. So this grant funding is for small amounts of money if you're looking at maybe developing a business plan, if you're looking for a survey, if you're looking for other types of consultancy costs, where it will help you gather your thinking to think about your trading model and how you might be able to generate your own earned income as an organisation, and then perhaps lead to taking social investment. So on Friday, after we've finished our third session, we will email out to you all of the details with the links and the application form and process, and we're on hand to give you support and advice if you should do it. So I just want to kind of say thank you and hello to Lynzi Leroy, who's joining us today to speak about her organisation, Scottish Design Exchange, and also her experience of working with Social Investment Scotland, which I'm sure is brilliant, been fantastic. Obviously, we've all gone through quite a kind of long 3 months. Lynzi and I were speaking before. Today feels like it's a day where actually I'm looking forward to a week off, a holiday at some point. It's been a long 3 months. So we're looking to go there. So thank you. Thanks, Lynzi. Lovely to have you here. We were chatting on the phone the other day, and it's just it's amazing the kind of 3 months that we've all kind of been through. And I think it's amazing to see an organisation like you that's really kind of pivoted the business model, supported over 300 artists throughout Scotland, and you're there kind of still making a difference. So I just thought if we could kick off, we could say a little bit about you, Lynzi, yourself, the organisation, and what Scottish Design Exchange does.
Sure, yeah. Well, I come from a business background rather than a creative background, but I started the Scottish Design Exchange 5 years ago now, and started it as a social enterprise to try and help and support artists to bring their work to the high street and to have an impact on the Scottish economy. So to really try and compete on the high street and let artists have that direct contact with that type of customer. In the last 5 years, we've paid out over £3.5 million to the artists we work with, and we opened our second store in Buchanan Galleries in Glasgow just over a year ago, and that store alone has paid out over £1 million to the artists from their products, of course, the sale of their products. But I think what we do, which is quite unique, is that we try and help and support the artists. We look at them as individual businesses, look at their product ranges, really try and help them to get their pricing right, you know, take all that sort of worry away from of the marketing and the selling side of the business, and let them focus on what they're good at, which is the creative side and the making. We have a huge range of businesses that we deal with in artists. I think we've got everything at every end of the spectrum, from people who are still making on the kitchen table right up to companies like Whiskey Frames, who started with us, who now sells worldwide and employs 5 people.
Yeah, fantastic. And it is really interesting, the range of organisations that you support. We were chatting before, I'm on the board of an organisation called Mrs., which is an
Yes.
organisation that have a great product. It's empowerment pants. So it's pants that you can buy, and all the proceeds goes to supporting women and girls in North Glasgow who've been through maybe some difficult times. So it's really supporting that type of social enterprise model through to people like the Blank Faces, who are on one of our other programmes, who are
Yeah,
an organisation
carers,
that, yeah, that support homeless experienced people. So was it always kind of your ambition there to kind of support organisations which were creative but also delivering social impact? Was that something that you kind of like had
yeah.
aimed to do from the beginning?
Yes, from day one, we actually gave free space to social enterprises that were selling products, and I've advised them on that product and how to make the product stand out first rather than the social enterprise, so that people want to pick it up because it's a good quality product, and the benefit of buying that product is that the money goes to a good cause. So we support 16 social enterprise and charities, and I think the other one you probably know, who's actually moved back to Australia now, Josie Scott.
Oh yeah.
So her company as well, we helped her look at the products. She came to us with cushions, and they were quite expensive to make. So we looked at the price point, and we are on the high street, so we know that over a certain price point, people just won't buy them. So Josie went back and looked at a whole other range of products made from wood, from coasters to doorstops, and sold very, very well. So yeah, we've always supported the social enterprise. Gal Gale in Glasgow as well have been with us since the beginning.
And it must be, it's a really interesting area, I think. As someone that I did a fine art degree years ago, I don't want to tell you how many years ago, but which was fantastic, loved it, studied painting in Glasgow School of Art, and it was an amazing opportunity to be creative, to make some really good work. But I felt when I left the art school, actually thinking about how do I make a living? How do I monetize this? How do I make my artwork into a product? That there was a kind of a gap there, and I think it's an interesting model that you've got where you're supporting artists to think about price points, commercialization, that type of thing. What sort of can you talk us about the kind of process that you might go through with some of the artists, and maybe just some of the kind of needs that you had seen or are seeing at the moment?
Well, they come to us with at every stage. Some of them are already well established and well known, and others, come with an idea. So we really try and support whatever comes forward. But during COVID, particularly, has been really difficult. Obviously, we have 15 staff, in which we had to furlough, which left me running the business on my own. So it wasn't easy to then adapt and to support the artists. But we just spoke to them. I was trying to put out information about funding, that I found out. They were sharing amongst themselves as well what funding was available, and we've had some people who have done really, really well. They continue to sell online from their own shops, and have probably sold more during this period than they ever have. And then on the other side, there's people who were locked out of their studio, had no facilities to make, and were not able to sell anything at all. And similarly with the funding, we've had every end of the spectrum, where some people have been well supported and have found funding very easily and had their records up to date, etc., and others who've not been able to access anything at all. That could be due to their circumstances. So the 300 artists that we have is kind of a window on the rest of the population, I suppose.
Which, I mean, it's really interesting. We were chatting about some of those challenges that you've overcome, and obviously there's lots of people in Scotland that I think they learned a new word, furloughing. Before we kind of like speak about that process, can you tell me a little bit about how you came across social investment? So you're a Social Investment Scotland investee, and I guess for you it'd be interesting to hear about how you came across social investment, how you used it, and what you said you came from a business background, and what your attitude was to taking on debt, because for a lot of people it's a consideration, should you, about using debt and how to use it properly. So there's a few different questions in there, I think, just with them. So how you came across and what your initial kind of thoughts were about, if you're taking debt, how do you know it's something that you can handle, and what was the kind of thought process around it?
It's scary.
Yeah.
My experience was through First Port, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
So I was accepted on the First Port funding programme. It was specific funding for growth.
Mm-hmm.
So it was for opening the shop in Glasgow. So we had a real purpose for the money.
Mm-hmm.
We'd already proven that our shop in Edinburgh had been successful. It'd been running for over 2.5 years. And we knew that if we wanted to help more artists and more social enterprises, that we needed to grow. So that process was really great. And the way that First Port works is you get part funding, up front, if you're accepted and get through the process. But then the next part, to get any other money, you need to have social investment or investors to get the match funding. And actually I found the social investment part and the social investors actually the easiest part of that process. I think if you've got a good business, investors are always interested. And I think that was one thing about the Scottish Design Exchange. It stood alone as a business first, as well as a social enterprise. So they were very keen and willing and offered investment. And we managed to get 37,500 from private social investors. And then we worked with CIS to make that up to 50,000. So we took a loan from CIS. And then we got the match funding through that. So we got £100,000 in total. And we have to pay that money back. We're paying back the loan to CIS. And after 3 years, we have to pay the social investment money back as well. So, that can be quite daunting, but at the same time, the social investors have been great and very supportive. And actually, out of all the organisations I've worked with in the last 5 years, I've found CIS to be really professional, very, very hands-on and helpful, and always there at the end of the phone. So that's really helped assure me. We have to provide our figures every quarter to you guys, but it's not a pressure. We can ask questions, we can say that we're running a little bit late because business is what business is, and you've always been really flexible and helpful actually.
Well, that's good to hear, and I think we've got Brian on the line as well, so that's nice to hear that. And I guess, so let's talk about COVID, because obviously that was something which seemed to literally come overnight. I can remember the Friday before, we were thinking about running some events, and then on the Monday, literally over the weekend, things seemed to really worsen, and we cancelled all of our activity. And quite soon after, I guess we were in lockdown, so that affected retail and whatever else. So can you just tell us about I guess how that affects you, the shock of it to begin with, and just how you responded to it. And I guess speaking to Social Investment Scotland, what the initial steps were that you went through.
Yeah, it was. I think it's a shock to us all. And nothing could prepare you for it really. I think my husband's French and having family in France, and we kind of got a little bit idea of what was going on there, and they had lockdown just before that. I then started a risk assessment from there, so before lockdown happened here, quite well in advance. And I spoke to Brian, my advisor at CIS. He was one of the first people I spoke to see if I could get a break on the loan if we had to close and lock down. And so I just tried to make sure I was really, really prepared for what was coming and to look at every scenario. And at the end of that risk assessment, it was, we're going to close. Yeah. We then knew exactly, and we had to assess our financial position. At that point, we had no idea for how long it would be. And like you say, furlough was, I don't even think really on the discussion at that point. So we had to make sure that we could pay the staff. We knew that we could pay them to the end of that month and the following month. And then it was a little bit of a breathing space to, let's say, right, we now just need to take step by step and see what happens and use the support that we've got around us, our board members, the organisations like CIS and First Port. And I think that the only way I really could get through it was to kind of get up on a Monday, plan to Friday, get through to Friday and restart again on the Monday. As soon as you start looking too far in advance, you just get a lot of questions that you can't answer. Information was being thrown out left, right and centre. It was really hard to navigate through that. And then when the furlough came on, it was great, and we were just really lucky that we had enough money in the bank to be able to assure the staff that they would get paid, and we could reclaim the furlough back later, which I think for many businesses might have been a problem.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you said, that's a common thing we heard from a lot of businesses in terms of trying to plan from week to week and from whatever you could do. I understand that, kind of more recently, you've been looking at your digital business, and that's certainly grown, and it may be a focus going forward. Now, no one's got a crystal ball about what the high street's going to look like and how we're going to unfurlough, if that's a word. And I get there, but I'd wonder what your kind of thought process was, or is at the moment, in launching more of your digital sales. What you were saying, that a lot of your customers, their own digital businesses, certainly we heard, digital has been taking off, and it seems to be perhaps a new area, maybe for your business as well.
Well, we always had an online shop actually, and we never really got the time to focus on that properly. We always kind of tried to do it internally, had a little bit contractor working on it, maybe one day a week. But the shops just took up so much time. We were open 7 days a week, and that it never really became something to focus on. And that just changed. I realised when we did lockdown that probably the only thing I could do from home is try and get focused online. But that needed a lot of work as well, because with the 300 artists all being in different situations, not all of them could sell or deliver. So it took us quite a while to get that organised, and I did have to take on a marketing company to take over the whole social media side. There's just no way I could have done it all on my own. And just 2 weeks ago, we took a manager back off furlough, the Glasgow manager, to help, because we did manage to get some grant funding. And yeah, we've really focused on that and had some really strong sales, and now all the artists who can sell are up and on the website, on the shop. So yeah, it's been, if I want to say, it's been an advantage to have had it set up already. It wasn't from scratch, but at the same time, it's been a lot of work to do it professionally. But I can see that it's going to be an advantage for us going forward. Our customers are still there, and if they want to buy from us for gifts or for presents and stuff, it's great that we can offer that.
And I guess, well, it is really good that you've offered that, and it's good to hear from you, similar to other creative social enterprises, the customers are still there. I don't know how much you've been able to think about going forward with the high street. So rent prices perhaps will stay the same within the high street. That's what a lot of people are kind of saying, maybe they'll come down. But dealing with things like the capacity within store, that's going to be something that lots of organisations are thinking about. Are you, I guess, with your risk assessments, taking one thing 1 week at a time, you have to figure out what Scottish Government are saying about how retail will operate and whatever else. But as a retailer, how far are you able to plan ahead, and what can you do at the moment, would you say?
We've pretty much got a plan in place. We're just waiting on a date. We know we're in phase 3, and we don't know when that'll be, but we're presuming it's going to be sometime in July.
Yeah.
So what we can do is look at the health and safety side. We know our premises, we know how we can lay that out. We're lucky at both stores. We've got 2 doors. One you can come in and one can come out. So that's been quite good. So we're pretty well prepared for that. And I think, for a long time since the last recession, the high street's been really struggling.
Yeah.
And there's some retailers, I think, that won't survive this perhaps. But I think the type of model that we're running, where the customer knows that the money goes to the artist, the lion's share is definitely getting out to that individual, that might be an advantage for us at this time. And I think we've got as good a chance or a better chance than any of the other major retailers of surviving this. I think the unknown is a bit scary, and how we're going to bring all the staff back and when, and off furlough and all this. And our aim at the moment is to try and just get through to Christmas, really.
Yeah.
And take
absolutely.
next year as a new year.
All makes perfect sense, and I think we're kind of seeing that across the past 3 months. One thing that's been really positive is seeing you know, the public's response to the NHS being out clapping and being more involved and conscious about the community and ethical shopping and the way that business is done. I wonder if you're kind of seeing that as well then from your point of view. Perhaps actually a lot of mainstream businesses and mainstream brands are actually having a really good think about this area that we seem to be in, where actually we are more social, we are more kind of conscious about how we spend our money, and whether actually, rather than social enterprises acting more like businesses, businesses are going to act more like social enterprises and try and connect more with communities.
Yeah, I'm a bit 50-50 on it. You know, I'm a very socially minded person, and I really hope that is the way it goes. And we've definitely, you know, our customers come to us for that reason, and there is plenty of people out there that have that mindset. But when I saw the shops opening in England this week and the queues for certain retailers,
yeah,
let's say, then you know, there's also a bit of a disappointment in that people are rushing back to the norm, you know, that normal purchase. You know, so I'm not sure. I think I'm always a very positive person and always think that these things might change us, change society, and for the better. And sometimes that doesn't always work out. And I think after the last recession, you know, it didn't take that long to kind of go back to that old model and be doing the same thing that we were doing then. So I'm still hopeful. I'm still hoping that, you know, more people will come out of this and socially minded. And it's true, you know, what we've seen on this side of things compared to just a normal recession is the health side of it. You know, people have lost their lives, and, you know, people have lost members of their family, and you know, that impact is going to be there. So, you know, yeah, I really do hope that we start thinking a bit more about not just about socially buying, but the environment and, you know, looking after each other, really.
It's a really important point. And actually, certainly, I hope we do hang on to all of those things. Just finally, and I really appreciate your time, Lynzi. Thinking about your startup process and starting a social enterprise, what struck me the other day was that a lot of the creative businesses that came on board were maybe thinking about trading for the first time and getting involved in social enterprise. If you were to think about tips, if you were thinking about your own journey and just people that you've seen round about you, for organisations that are maybe starting to think about trading models and having those conversations with the directors perhaps about potentially taking on loans or whatever else, what do you think they have to think about before getting to the stage of thinking, right, I'm going to look at social finance and I'm going to look at a kind of viable trading model? That's obviously quite a broad question for lots of different, because there's different charities, whatever else, but I wonder if you could just share your thoughts or experiences.
Do you mean like established charities or people that are thinking about starting from scratch?
I actually mean, I think both actually. So I'm thinking about established and then people from scratch. And it's quite a broad question, but I just would like your kind of like take on where we are at the moment. And actually, if you're established, depends on what your business model is, as opposed to someone that's starting out.
Yeah, I think people that are just starting out, just start. I think the best advice I was ever given in business is that you're never ready and it's never going to be perfect. And that really helped me because, you know, you've got a fear, you've got a fear in starting, and you know that you're going to be rejected and all sorts of things. But you know, it's not really true. It's a fear that you hold in yourself. And what I found is that you can constantly convince yourself that the website has to be perfect and you have to have your perfect business plan and you have to do this and you have to go all these networking groups. Actually, you can go down a rabbit hole. And there's the amount of people that come to me for business advice or with an idea and they say, so I'm going to go and get funding and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm like, you know, you just need to start. And that can be start really small. And, you know, with some of the artists and creatives, it might just be having one product. You know, you're not going to have a product range of 20 things before you start. You know, start with one thing and build from there. And I think for more established businesses and charities, you know, I think there's a massive opportunity to, you know, provide an arm of bringing money into your charity, a regular income by creating products that people want. You know, the funding is hard, you know, it's a hard process and it's not always going to be there. And if you've got a model that relies on being funded year after year after year, that's difficult and that can be stressful. And I think, you know, what we call a bread and butter product, you know, having something that you can rely on that income, and, you know, Miss and Mrs. the empowerment pants, for instance, is a fantastic standalone product that people pick up and buy. But, you know, that has created a regular monthly income for them that they can rely on up until COVID, till the shops closed month on month. And, you know, they can look back after 3-4 years being with us and see that income is there. And that helps you financially plan.
Absolutely, that's great advice. I think actually, so thanks so much, Lynzi. Thanks very much for your time.
No problem.
It's a pleasure to speak to you. And so the next phase, I'm going to go through some slides just to generally talk about social investment and the options that are out there for the third sector. So I'll share the screens. If you joined us yesterday, some of this will be familiar, just with a wee bit more detail. So let me share this one. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, for the remainder of our time, I'm just going to whiz through some slides on Social Investment Scotland, on the programmes that we run, and also some of the loan products that we have. So Social Investment Scotland, we've been round now for 18 years. We're an organisation that supports charities and social enterprises with social finance. So we do loans from £10,000, and the biggest one I think has been up to about £1.5 million. A couple of years ago, we started off a new sister organisation called Cis Ventures. That was because we realised that there were quite a few organisations that were traditional business models, but that were delivering social impact. So we developed what we call the mission lock, and that's where we work with a business to lock in a mission intent into the articles of incorporation. And it means that you're making a profit, but you're also delivering social impact. In terms of our core programmes, we've got this one. This is a Raising Investment programme. And typically, this is delivered in a venue somewhere. It's a half-day event, but we've obviously refocused that. And the aims of Raising Investment is to understand what investment options are, understand a bit about trading models and growth models, and about the range of social enterprise support and funding out there in the ecosystem. And something that's relevant to this workshop, the Retail Academy, this is an organisation, this is a training programme that supports product-based social enterprises. So we have an example here of Hey Girls. That's an organisation that makes sanitary products, and it's a buy one, give one model. So for every pack you buy, one is donated to a woman or girl in need. And this organisation is stocked within various different supermarkets, so Asda, Waitrose, and so on. This programme is going to run virtually before we do one in a venue again in October of this year, and we'll open up. And it's basically a programme that introduces you to the buyers from various different retailers. So as Adobe, McDonald's hotels, and then also there's a procurement aspect as well. So we have large companies who send their procurement professionals forward for the programme as well. We have another programme called Growth Ambitions. Now, this is for senior leaders within third sector organisations who are looking at growth or change. Now, in particular, as we look towards organisations potentially restructuring, transforming and changing, where we will be delivering these programmes to support leaders to grow the impact of their models, but also perhaps strengthen the actual organisation itself by making some tough decisions within the organisation. And this programme's here to support leaders to do that. So this is just a slide from our latest social impact report. It shows you about the types of loans that we deliver by volume and outcome area, and then by value and outcome area. So in terms of volume, we do lots of small loans, I'd say under £50,000, and the main area there is citizenship and community. The second area is arts, heritage, sports and faith. So very much about working with smaller organisations delivering social impact within communities. Then by value, the larger loans tend to be for financial inclusion. So organisations perhaps that support people who are affected by the poverty premium, where because of being in poverty, they basically usually get access to much higher cost debt. And we've seen businesses like Wonga and organisations like that. So we tend to support organisations that try and challenge high cost credit providers. So who are the social investment providers? So Lynzi spoke before about some of the different social investment providers in Scotland who will offer different types of support and investment. So I put a kind of sliding scale on this slide. So from one end you have your large high street banks, which we all know and might bank with ourselves. On the other end, we have social investment providers. Now, these organisations came about because traditionally, if you were a charity or a social enterprise, you were far too risky. And in fact, more often than not, you wouldn't be able to deliver or offer, any security over your loans. Therefore, a bank wouldn't provide you debt. So organisations like Social Investment Scotland came about, who tend to offer loans of above £10,000. And then also, as Lynzi had mentioned, there's First Ports, Resilient Scotland, Big Issue Invest, who have programmes to support startup organisations to give them that small amount of investment to test the idea, try it out before they might look at another social investor. So in terms of types of loans that you might get from a social investor like Social Investment Scotland, quite often it's small loans that maybe people come to us for cash flow reasons. So as Lynzi said before, maybe £20,000 to buy stock or to get yourself set up, and that's pretty straightforward. Quite often, and over the past couple of years, we've worked with people that maybe have European funding or loans where they, grants where they will incur costs before actually getting the money from the grant funder. So we can provide a bridging loan in between the organisation incurring the costs and then getting the money from an ESF fund or a leader fund or so on. A nice option is when you can get a bit of both. You can have a bit of grant and a bit of loan funding. And there's organisations like Scottish Edge that provide that type of option. So you'll get a loan which is maybe 70% of the mix, and then a 30% grant which supports the last little bit there. In terms of some of the other larger loans that we do, we've got a programme called the Growth and Replication Challenge. Now this is when we see organisations maybe like Cornerstone, who are up in the northeast of Scotland, that have a good model, making good financial impact, and we want to help them with business support, but then also a large amount of investment to grow and scale across the country. And finally, but not kind of exhaustively, quite often an organisation will look at buying property. Now we can help with mortgage type of products. In this instance, we would ask for security, and the security that you can offer will affect the interest rate. So if you give a certain type of security, that'll bring the interest rate down. We'll usually co-invest with a social bank like Triodos or Cap Bank or another model like that to support the full loan range and option. Finally, through this time of COVID, SCVOs, Scottish Council for Voluntary Organisations, have been working with us and some others to provide resilience funds, wellbeing funds, and so on. In order to get some more information about those loans, please do look at the COVID website on SCVO for further details. So, just going to stop the slides there. In terms of Social Investment Scotland, there are loads of different options, and we spoke to some of our customers on the call. What I'll do is, if you have any questions, I'll give you some space just now to ask them. And if not, we will wrap up. So I'll leave some space for questions just now if there's any coming through. I don't think so. I think that seems to be quite comprehensive, which is nice. So we're
nothing at the moment, Kieran. Yeah.
Well, that's good because I think my voice is going, so you can see that I'm wrapping this up.
I wonder if I might ask Lynzi a question.
You could,
Sure,
yeah, that
yeah.
would give me a second or two to get a drink.
So I think it's great hearing you be able to operate in terms of as a business, but supporting other businesses. I like that aspect. You know, I'm, as an artist, and it's one thing where if you're an individual sole trader, you've got your UTR registered with HMRC. You're a business, even though you're a sole trader, and it is thinking in terms of that. And looking at, I was interested in the balance of online, because you've obviously got a fairly comprehensive online complement to the physical in Glasgow and Edinburgh. Did you build that, and how much did you look at other examples like Etsy or Saatchi or ArtWow, and then looking at their model?
So the business or the online?
Online.
Online. Yeah, we built it's a Wix site. We built it from you know, from the add-on shop. It was pretty easy. We can do much of adding the products ourselves. It's just a lot of volume for us, because you know, if all 300 artists wanted to sell online, you're probably looking at about 10,000 products. You know, so we're trying to keep it simple, but there's some fantastic sites out there now that you can do this on your own, and even my limited skills, I could definitely get started if I was an individual.
Great, and the artists do fulfillment. There's not physical, yes. So they're responsible to the customer in terms of.
Yeah, at the moment we send the order to them and they fulfill that. But one of the things we're looking at the moment when we reopen the shops and we know that the footfall will be down is to take that part. You know, so retraining the staff and doing that whole side for the artists, so it's one less thing for them to worry about. And also we're holding a lot of stock in the shops, so it'd be good to, you know, help them sell that stock. And most of the artists have an Etsy site, and they have or individual shops on their own. And you know, there's companies like Hood's Honey, which is down in East Lothian, who have never been busier. You know, this has been a really busy period for them, and they've been selling out of products, and they can't keep up with the demand. You know, so yeah, it's each situation is unique and individual, I suppose.
And it's really positive in terms of that you're working with Social Investment Scotland, because there's that longer term relationship where they're looking at a business plan, looking at your investment readiness, then you're checking in over that period of time, which is good for both. And that's something that I think at Creative Scotland, because we are often doing funding and grants, the amount of the longer term relationships are with a limited number of organisations, what we term to call, you know, term regularly funded organisations. So it's really great that to hear your experience of working with Social Investment Scotland and First Port.
No, it's been great, and I think you do need that support, and finding the right one, you know, the one that works for you is important as well. And you know, I know we did a survey with the artists probably about a year ago now to look at them, and what I found really interesting is, you know, we asked them, you know, do you see yourself as an artist or a business or both? And most of them still say they're an artist or a designer, you know, and it's about changing that mindset. You've got to be both, you know, you're an artist, but you're making money from selling a product, or, you know, so it's about changing that. And, you know, their natural instinct would be to come to Creative Scotland for some things, for business advice and stuff, but actually it's Business Gateway. You know, it's more business advice they need rather than, you know, so it's about, you know, identifying where you get that support and going to the right place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, on you go.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Lynzi, there's another question for you. So Karen is asking, could you say a bit more about how you found your social investors?
Well, it was through First Port, so they organised an event where we got to go along and pitch, and so then social investors, maybe Kieran's a bit more, understands a bit more of the background of that, because some of them seem to be involved with CIS and some through First Port, and how do you find those guys, Kieran?
So my voice is back now, so I'll be able to do that for a bit more. Thanks for that. So I guess with First Port, so we work quite closely with First Port, and normally they have angel investors. So that's there's syndicates within Scotland of, I guess, high net worth individuals that want to invest within social companies. As a side point, that's kind of like CIS Ventures. So that's exactly what we do there, through either working with high net individuals that invest in either social businesses or businesses with impact. So they also have funding from Scottish Government, as do we, but then they have other investors as well. So they find those high net worth individuals. It's a program approach that they take. So I think it was Launch Me, I think, that you would have been on.
Yeah.
And so you go through a program, and then you're selected almost with investors in mind. So you're taken through the program. We will co-invest, as you've said, Lynzi. It's kind of like an important part if the high net worth individual is putting in somebody, knowing that there's a loan provider who's going to match that and almost kind of de-risk some of the money as well. It's an important element. That's through something called social investment tax relief. We'll touch a wee bit more on that on the community shares model tomorrow, but that's a scheme operated by the government, which actually, with a caveat, controversially might end this year, where if you're a high net worth individual, you can get 30% tax relief by investing in a social venture. Your money is locked in for 3 years. It's up to 3 years you spoke about, Lynzi.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes out. In addition, look at Resilient Scotland. That's an organisation in Scotland that tend to work with areas of high deprivation, but they will give a loan and a grant element as well. Big Issue Invest, have a look at them.
And
Awesome.
good ask, Kieran, if you found your own social investor, would they get the same tax relief? Would they be able to do that with, because I think what's really interesting in Scotland just now is there's a real big push for social investment, and there's a lot of people that are willing to do that. They get a good return on it, and you pay a small percentage fee over the 3 years back, and then return the money. But I think is there an ability for people to find someone that might be able to put, because I got small amounts from lots of investors. It wasn't, it was 5,000 and 3,000 and 10,000, it's things like that. So is that something companies could do themselves?
You can do it, and so we've done it with charities, just supporting them, just with no program. It's just about investment, but you can do it yourself. So you, as an organisation, you have to become sitter registered. So you would have filled in, and it takes about a couple of months, I think, maybe 2 to 3 months or so. So you did that. You register to be sitter registered, and then actually, once you're actually registered, it's dead easy. So if there's basically, if someone has a lot of money and they want to invest it within, or it doesn't need to be a lot of money, any amount of money, invest it into a social business, they'll get that 30% tax break. So it's dead easy, and you can find your own people. So it's actually a good option to look at.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the window for that might close in the next year or so, so keep an eye out on it. But yeah, certainly good to look at. Any more questions?
There's a question for Morgan. I don't know if you can see.
I saw that, yeah. So yeah, in terms of our targeted funding, what we always try and do is try and be as open as possible, hence open funding for sustaining creative development. We do have targeted funds where sometimes there are opportunities, or we see a need that needs to be addressed. So I think I said, in terms of the Create Networks or the Digital Pivot, those are small funds that are targeted at where we see a need. However, we are open to having conversations where within the creative industries team, we have a small budget that's targeted, but that is to support the sustainability of creative businesses. It's not for businesses, so we don't offer grants or investment in businesses but it's in the ecology. So if you've got a project that will benefit the visual arts sector, for example, or it will trailblaze, or it will demonstrate innovation, and I think innovation seems to be back as a term, because we are going to need to flex, bend, and innovate our way through this challenging time. So we are open to having conversations.
I think that's a really important point. I actually spoke to someone that we invested in just after the financial crash, an organisation that was on our ambitions programme, and they were saying at the time, the model wasn't completely, it wasn't making a profit, but so they couldn't have got a loan from a bank. But over the past 10 years or so, we invested in them, and they've got to the point where actually they can go to a bank for a cheaper loan if they want to get one, and that's a success story. Really, I think like taking a model that traditionally is too risky, but we were investing in them to get into the point of sustainability. And one of the things that they said after the financial crash was that what normally happens is that all of the funds that are out there are focused on emergency, on resilience, on making sure that things are just kind of keeping going. Actually, that space for innovation, it's hard because there isn't a lot of money for that, and that's kind of where I think social investment will come into its own, possibly throughout this process. We'll be there to take risks and to support work, which is risky but innovative. The only downside is you have to pay the money back. That's the kind of, the deal with it. So it kind of is, but we'll work with people to make sure the business models stack up. And I've provided my email address there for anyone that wants to have any kind of further chats about how they might get investment. The first thing is, a lot of time when people are thinking about setting up a creative venture or any venture, the first thing they think about is the legal structure, and that's kind of the wrong thing to do. It's think about basically what is the impact you want to make and what is the business model, how are you going to generate an income, and then after that think about the kind of structures around about it, and then what type of investment you would want to have. So we're always on hand. We've got Brian, one of our investment managers, online as well. You can always pick up the phone to us and we'll chat you through the different options, and also the other people out there. So we will do a certain part of the investment, but we've mentioned people like Resilient Scotland, First Port, Big Issue Invest, who I used to work for. They all have different types of funding and types of funding options also. So we can send out the slides also after this discussion, so you have a look at the various different people that are out there.
Could I just say one thing I forgot to mention, and I think it's quite important that I think businesses really need to understand also the difference, businesses, social enterprises, in even more so, the difference between marketing and PR. And, for many years, I'd put money into marketing the business, which can be on your brand and redesign a website, social media, all sorts of things. And that's really, really tough, and you can waste a lot of money. But actually working with, when we opened the Glasgow store, I worked with an amazing PR guy in Glasgow who got us national coverage, and and we've been in the newspapers and in magazines quite a lot. And I think there's always that opportunity for social businesses. They're looking for a good story, a nice story, a positive story. And I think you can spend as little as like £800 on PR and get national coverage, which can really boost your business. And you could put thousands of pounds down the drain in marketing. So that is a really important difference to know, and where you're going to invest some of that money that might get you the best coverage.
I agree. I think it's a really good point, especially I agree there's an opportunity at the moment, because actually we're all looking for a good story, aren't we? We're looking for some good news right now when things look quite tough. A really important point. I don't know if there's any other questions.
There is one, Kieran, yes.
Okay, yeah.
So this is from Kate. I've had a bridging loan from SIS before, and I'm keen to get business support. The Ambitions programme sounds what I would need.
Okay.
Does this give me a foot in the door or go against me?
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't do either. Just if you're looking for support, get in touch with us. We're going to be running that programme again twice, and we know that basically that the key thing. So that the Ambitions programme, there isn't really anything out there within the sector that supports leaders going through difficult time and difficult change. So if you're looking for that support, you've got my email address, and we'll email out with details of that as well. We potentially will have a different funding programme starting pretty soon as well, and we'll email you out details of that also. So it doesn't go against you. It doesn't. It's basically it's there for you, and the criteria doesn't. It's open to you. So just send us some details, and we will have a chat with you. So that's good. That's good that people seem to want to do some more work with us. I just want to say that it's taken us up neatly to 2:30. I seem to have found my voice again, so that's good. So thanks very much to you, Lynzi, for joining us. It was really good. So thanks a lot for your time. It's really interesting hearing about your business. I used to work right next to your store, so I was in there every other day. So it's always good to see.
That's good. That's good.
Oh, good stuff. And thanks, Morgan. We'll see you again tomorrow, I'm sure, for our session later on. And thank you always, my esteemed colleague Julie.
Thank you.
I'll see you again tomorrow. So tomorrow we've got another session with Creative Scotland. It's focusing on community shares models. So that's a model like maybe Govern Hill Baths, where you can offer members of your community shares in the business, and they can help your growth through that way. So we're working with Community Shares Scotland and also with Creative Scotland tomorrow to run that programme. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lynzi. Thank you, Morgan.
Thanks all. Thanks,
nice
Kieran.
to meet you, Morgan.
It was really great listening to you, Lynzi. Some good tips there, and great to meet you. And
You
Julie,
too.
see you on.
Take care.
See you
Bye,
soon. Thank you.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.